During this project, you'll color restore an old photograph utilizing a crawl level design make process. This project is a great way to begin learning Photoshop or Photopea since it's project based, fun, and easy to do. Color restoration has become a popular and useful skill to learn and is being used both in the movie industry and in the world of visual stills. I hope you enjoy this process. Let's get started. During this project, you'll create an original digital image of a color restored photograph. You'll develop an appreciation for digital arts through the process, work with fine motor skills, and compositional considerations. We'll also apply technology concepts with classical media concepts. Find an old photograph, perhaps black and white, and make sure you take it out of a frame. If it's under glass, remove the glass carefully and take a picture of it or scan it to use for this project. We'll upload these images into either Photoshop, or if you don't have Photoshop, Photopea.com offers the exact same tools for free. A few tips. If you find an image of a relative, it may be a more meaningful project, so I suggest finding a familiar image. Clean the image up using touch-up tools before you start color restoring. And start with areas you're most comfortable with. Large areas of color are a good starting point. We'll label our layers. That way you won't get confused with what layer is what feature. And we'll adjust layers only when finished with that layer. Once you make an adjustment to a layer, those changes that you make after that adjustment won't be affected by the adjustments. And experiment, experiment, experiment. Digital arts are very forgiving. To start your color restoration in Photoshop or Photopea, we'll go to File, Open, and then select the image that you want to color restore. Click Open, and the image will pop up. We'll go to Image, Adjustments, Black and White. Click OK. Then back to Image, Auto Tone, Image, Auto Contrast. And now we're ready to start cleaning up the image. We'll use the spot healing brush tool to clean up some of the areas in the shoulder area. You can adjust the size of the brush in the upper left hand corner, and as I click over top of the areas I want to clean up, Photoshop or Photopea will basically clone out or select pixels near those areas to cover them up. Always get in the habit of zooming in close to your work. When you zoom out, if there are issues zoomed in, they won't be as evident, and it will make your work experience much easier. Now that I have the shoulder cleaned up, I'm going to go ahead and crop my image. I'm going to go up and use the marquee tool to select the area that I want to work with, and I'm going to crop out that black space in the lower right hand corner. Go up to Image and Crop, and now I'm going to zoom back in a little bit, deselect, and start working with my layers. I'll click the Layer tab in the lower right hand corner to create a new layer, and I'm going to go ahead and label that with the area that I want to start with. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and start with the face, so I'll label it Skin. Select a color that's close to a skin color, and we can change that color, the actual hue of it, later. Select Brush. Use a hard round brush You can bump the size of it up or down depending on how you like to work. I always start with a large brush first to block in large areas, and then zoom in and work tighter and smaller areas later. Start blocking in the color, make sure it's close to the color that you want to use. Again, we can make adjustments to the color later on. And now we're going to go ahead and use a blend mode. There are a few that will work, but I like to use overlay for this. Color will work as well. But again, I'm going to go ahead and stick with overlay. Those blend modes or adjustments will give you different looks, and you can adjust each look that you get from those blend modes. Block in large areas first. And again, don't worry about the exact color or hue that you're getting while you brush in this color. We can adjust all of that later. Again, zoom in. It makes your work experience much easier. And just know that if you do lay color down in an area that you didn't want it, you can always go in with an eraser tool and erase that later. So I'm blocking all of this in, and now I'm going to go ahead and adjust the size of my brush to work a little bit more detail zoomed in. With the skin area covered, it's time to go in and go ahead and make an adjustment to the actual color that I'm working with in the skin. So I'm going to go to Image Adjustments and use Hue and Saturation. I can adjust the saturation, pull it down to take away color, which this looks much better with less saturation. And I can make the layer lighter or darker. This needs to be a little darker. The saturation needs to be bumped down a little bit more. It looks a little bit more realistic. It's not perfect, but I'm getting there. And you can adjust the hue and actually change the entire color of that layer. Just know that if you are working with separate layers, all of the colors will adjust together on that layer. I'll make a new layer, and I'm going to label this Clothes. I'll select a khaki color. With a little bit of research, I found out that this uniform was a khaki color. And I can double click my palette and I can adjust that color anytime I want. Turn up the size of the brush, start blocking in some color. And adjust my blend mode to overlay again. And I can continue blocking in as much color as I feel I need before I need to zoom in and start working a little bit tighter with a smaller brush. Now I'm zoomed in, adjusting the size of my brush, blocking it in. That's looking pretty decent. I'll block in the hat, shrink my brush size down, get some of the detail. And we're starting to get there. I'm going to choose a blue for my background. I don't know what the backdrop was, but I'll use blue just because cool colors tend to recede. I'll block in large areas first. I'm going to be sloppy with this, knowing that I can go in with an eraser and I can erase the edge later on with this eraser tool that's highlighted right now on the screen. Now I'll go ahead and make an adjustment to that background underneath Image Adjustments, Hue and Saturation. Turn the saturation way down. I'm going to go ahead and adjust the hue a little bit and darken it just a touch. Now I'm going to work on some of the facial features, the eyes, the lips. I'll add a little bit of color in the hair, finish it up, and make some cleanup adjustments zoomed in here in just a second. For the lips, I'm going to zoom in and select a red and just add a hint of color. I'll shrink my brush size down, start laying in color. Now I run the risk of making this look like he has lipstick on if I leave that amount of saturation. So I'm going to go into my blend mode again, click overlay, and in this case I need to desaturate or take away some of that color. So I'm going to go over here to my sponge tool, which is underneath this hand. I'll click and hold, select the sponge tool, it's on desaturate. I'm just going to sop up some of this color so that it's toned down a little bit. Just know while you work, there are color restorers that have 20, 30, maybe 40 layers of color just on the skin. So we're doing a very simple version of color restore, although it will end up being pretty effective. I'll select brown, my brush, block in some color for the eyes. And then add a little bit of character to the corners of the eyes with a pink. Now a little bit of color for the hair. And then I'll block in a little bit of skin color and some browns over top of the hair to blend them out. Now I'll go back, touch some things up, paying attention to the colors that I'm working with and which layer those colors are on. To select a color that you want to use in your palette on specific layers, you'll be using this tool, the eyedropper tool. The eyedropper tool is here. I can click an area and in my palette that color will show up so that I don't have to fish for a new color or try to match them. I'll zoom in a little bit and save it. Go to File, Save As, give it a name, save it as a Photoshop document. To place our color restored version of this photograph next to its black and white, we'll follow these steps. Go to File, New, and then select the name of the photograph that's already restored. The size of the image will pop up, and all we need to do is double the width and leave the height alone. That way we'll have a blank canvas to paste layers into. The width of this image is roughly 38, it's close to 40, so I'll double it. Select the width, I'll type in 80, click OK, and a blank canvas will show up. Notice it's in a separate tab, and I can click back and forth between these two tabs anytime I want to select that actual image that I'm working with. I'm going to go back to my image, scroll down, and select the background. I'll use my marquee tool to drag across the area that I want to copy. So again, the background selected, I drag across the area that I want to copy, and I go to Edit, Copy, click on the other tab for the other image, go to Edit, Paste, and now my black and white version will be placed into that blank canvas. I'll use my Move tool up here on top to move the black and white version over, either on the left or right hand side, whichever you choose. and it doesn't have to be an exact placement. We'll crop it down later. Go back to the color restored version, and with the area still selected, go up to Edit, Copy Merged. So the first time you selected Copy just for the background. This time we're going to select Copy Merged so that all of the layers will be combined as we paste into the new document. Click Copy Merged, click on the new tab, go to Edit, Paste, use your Move tool and move the color restored version where you'd like to place it. The last thing I'm going to do is use my marquee tool or the crop tool to crop this down a little bit. So I'll select the marquee tool, drag across what I want to keep, and then I'll go up to Image and Crop. Now I'm ready to save this as a new image. So go to File, Save As, rename it, and click Save. I hope you enjoyed this crawl level project, and I hope it gives you some confidence to move into my walk and run projects demonstrated in other tutorials. Remember to hit like and subscribe below, and see you next time.